It's 11 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and get started. We want to thank you all for joining us this morning. First, we're going to just introduce ourselves as facilitators. My name is Farron Russell, and I am a member of the Jackson Miss Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Like I previously said, I'll be one of the facilitators for today. I'm going to pass it to another one of our facilitators, Ms. Latoya Reed, to introduce herself.
Good morning. I'm Latoya Reed, proudly serving as one of your hostesses for this morning. Thank you all for joining us. Look forward to the conversation and the dialogue. I know that this will be great. Good morning and welcome.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Kiara Garner. I will be another one of your hosts for this morning. I will be also guiding you through the actual program along with Miss Mary Sampson. I am currently a part of Jackson Miss Alumnae chapter, and I am a fourth grade teacher at Barack Obama Magnet. And this is very important to me to hear about things that we have going on in the city. You know, everybody needs to be educated. So it's always good to know and be up to date with current events. And now I will pass it over to Sora Simpson.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Sampson. I am a member of the Delta Pi chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and I'm a graduating senior biology pre-physical therapy student at Jackson State University. And I believe that this conversation is important today because legislation is one of the most important instruments of government in protecting citizens and organizing society. So it's important that we know what's going on. And I'm excited to hear what we're going to talk about today.
All right, guys. So the purpose of this town hall type, discussions, coffee and conversations is to just hear elected officials give us updates on 2 to 3 bills that they think that it is important for us to know about. They'll be discussing, important things like current events and important things that we should know. So if you have any lingering questions after they get through speaking, please feel free to use the Q&A question box at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will have a Q&A session after all of the panelists have all the elected officials have spoken. So feel free to send questions throughout their updates, and we will make sure that we get those questions answered for you after they get through speaking. And grab your coffee, because I have mine. It is coffee and conversations. So if you are sipping coffee, we love to see it. We love to see it because it is coffee and conversations. So grab your notepad, grab your coffee, make sure you guys are taking notes, and make sure you have a lot of questions because that's what they're here for. Now I will pass it over to Sora Sampson, who will give you a brief intro of all of our panelists.
First up, we have Senator Hillman Tyrone Fraser, who is an alumnus of Jackson State University and George Washington University National Law Center. His leadership is international, having served in countries such as Hungary, Romania, and the Czech Republic. His legislative experience spans from 1980 to present day, and he currently represents the District 27 of Hinds County. Secondly, we have Senator Sally Norwood, who is also an alumnus of Jackson State University, earning his Master's of Education in Guidance and Counseling. Senator Norwood's legislative experience spans from 2013 to current day, and he also represents the District 28 of Hinds County. Last but definitely not least, we have Representative William Bo Brown, who is an alumnus of Tennessee State University, where he received his bachelor's in political science, and Jackson State University, where he earned his Master's of Public Policy Administration. Representative Brown represents District 70 of Hinds County.
All right, thank you, Sora Sampson, for those beautiful, beautiful intros. We will go on, and I will be giving you a breakdown of how today will go. So just right off the top, make sure you guys are using the Q&A box throughout the speaking of the panelists. Fill that Q&A box up, guys. We want to hear from you because this is for you. This is updates for you. So if you have questions, please feel free to send them throughout the panelist speeches. So here's how today will go. To ensure that everyone gets their question answered and every panelist get a time to talk, each panelist will get a minute to talk, not a minute, literally, but each panelist will get some time to talk about 2 to 3 bills that they think that is important to us, and that is currently in session. After that time, we will ask participants for their questions. So we will go to the Q&A box first, and we will get those questions answered. And then we will open up the floor for any additional questions that you guys can write into the Q&A box to our panelists. So let's go over some norms. You know, we have Zoom norms. So I just want to read a little snippet from the Denver Foundation. These are agreements and norms to ensure that all participants and panelists are respected and respectful. So if you experience discomfort, which we all do, recognize that discomfort and recognize that it could lead to growth. So if at any time you feel discomfort or you need to log off, that's fine, but let's recognize that and let's get our questions answered so we can grow from that. Speak your truth. So, we all, have something to say and, we want to get our point across, but let's, be reminded that let's be respectful because we all are people. We all have feelings and we know some things we just cannot control. So let's be respectful and you will also be respected. Let's accept. So accept the truth and, you know, anything that you hear that you don't agree with, you cancel that out your mind. We all have different experiences. So we want to make sure everybody is comfortable. Make sure we are listening with intent to learn and make sure we suspend judgment. So, going through this, like I said, everybody have their own experiences and we want to suspend judgment. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's open up the floor now that we've got those norms out of the way, those discomforting rules, so to say. We will go ahead and open up the floor for our panelists. So if Representative William Bo Brown, if you want to start us off and give us some updates on 2 to 3 bills of your choice and, just some current updates that you would like for us to know. We can't hear you. You're on mute.
Okay, how about now?
Good.
Thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you all today. And I want to thank you very much for coming up with this forum, which is always good for organizations such as you all to be informed about what's happening in the state government. And I think it's a good gesture on you all's part, and congratulations on putting it together. We have probably introduced so far hundreds of bills. I put it to you like that so far this session, and we're meeting today, which is Saturday, to finalize a lot of the bills that we have and that we're considering rather. And most of these bills that we're dealing with now are in what we call committee, and that means that there are conferees on both sides, the Senate and the House, 3 each. They are negotiating and discussing and going over the various bills before we finalize them in the next several days. Incidentally, the session will be ending in approximately 8-10 days, unless we are asked to do something with the stimulus package that just came out of Congress, that came out of Washington, and of course, we may have to deal with that before we actually adjourn. I'd like to talk about a bill or two, and one of them is one that I introduced this year, and it's still alive, thank God. And it's concerning providing community mental health services and counseling to recently released inmates from the Mississippi Department of Corrections. As you all may know, that once a inmate who may have psychological problems is released from the state penitentiary, he is, they're put back into the general population of the community, oftentimes with psychological problems. And there have been several cases that I know personally where these particular inmates with psychological problems have resulted flashbacks, shall we say, to violent actions, destroying property, raising Cain, scaring the community, scaring family members, threatening, and all this kind of stuff. And then, of course, they would be placed back into a health mental health facility that will only hold them for 2 or 3 days and give them what you call rudimentary, basic counseling and therapy, whatever the case may be. But it's not nearly enough time to really get them back on track mentally. So this particular bill is one that will give close to $1 million to fund community. And I did say community, meaning you could be treated in your own general community, so to speak. Community mental health facilities to provide therapy, counseling, and training for these inmates with psychological problems who've been released back into the community. I'm very, very happy about that. Also, we're very proud of the fact that we were able to give teachers a raise this year. That has happened, and I think it's been, it's more years than I can count, and I'm sure some of you might know exactly how many years, but it's been a long time since we've had teacher salary increased. I believe right now it's $1,000 across the board, and there's also a bill that we passed earlier that will give some teachers more of an increase based on merits and based on certain other criteria that will enable them to get what we call bonus increases based on their quality of work, so to speak. And of course, we also have we're dealing with a 1% tax increase for the city of Jackson because of its infrastructure and water problem. They're asking for a 1% sales tax to raise approximately $14 million a year to help tackle their infrastructure problem. And you know what we went through during this winter crisis that we just came through. So, and let's see, like I say, I brought all of them here with me, but of course, you see how thick this package is here. There's probably 200, 300 bills in here. There is something else I would like to bring forth, and that is Medicaid expansion. We have been working on that, and we may have the first expansion in Medicaid in history here in the state of Mississippi. For some reason, we don't want to take this 95% federal funding that the Medicaid carries with it. And for some reason, the leaders to be in the state have refused, have not wanted to take that money to expand Medicaid. We feel like that would be something for poor folk, certainly for minorities, for these rural communities that hospitals are closing. So don't know whether we're going to pass this, but I believe something is still in the works for Medicaid expansion here in the state of Mississippi. Reform. We also have done something with prison reform, and that is they have began to shorten sentencing. You've heard many cases where a person is sentenced for 25 years for a joint or two of marijuana. And by the way, we've also approved marijuana. I was very happy to be working on that and to vote for that passage. And we also want to thank the citizens for voting on the referendum to pass medical marijuana in the state of Mississippi. Also, we all are proud of the fact that we were able to bring forth legislation to change our flag after 100 years. And so I think if we evaluate it, we've had a great year this year, and I think we will get some pretty good passing grades if we had to be graded on how the session has gone so far. Thank you. That's my little recap.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We appreciate those updates, and we hope that some of those great things that you said that you guys proposed will be passed. I heard you say you had a meeting today. So we hope to hear some good things from that meeting. All right, so we're gonna move on. We're gonna go to Senator Hillman T. Fraser. If you would speak on 2 to 3 bills or just give us updates of your choice.
Thank you and good morning.
Good morning. How are
Thanks
you?
for allowing us to participate with you this morning. We are in the last days of the session. We'll be here this weekend, Saturday and Sunday, working on bills. During the course of any session, we're going to consider about 3,000 bills. That's a lot of bills and numbers. But in terms of passage, we only pass about 15% of those bills that are introduced during the regular session. During this last part of the session, we're dealing with conference committees. That is, finding out the difference between bills that the House passed and the Senate passed. I'm trying to come up with a compromise to present to the body. So that's what we'll be doing this weekend, coming up with conference reports to file in the House and Senate, a compromise versus bills that both of us passed. So that's going to be very important work for us doing. Very important work we'll be doing this weekend. In terms of things I'm interested in addition to passing bills, we have to spend your money. Anytime you buy something, collect taxes, anytime you work, collect taxes. Our job is to spend your money properly in terms of your priorities, you said. We do spend a lot of your money on education. In fact, about close to 6% of our dollars are spent on education statewide. But in terms of what I'm working on this week, mentioned conference reports and appropriation. I do happen to chair the appropriation subcommittee for community colleges. We know that a lot of our community colleges have not been funded properly because of the downturn in the economy. So this weekend, we're working very hard to make sure that we restore some of those funds that were cut from them in past sessions, because we have 15 community colleges that provide a very valuable service. We look at K-12 education. I think my colleague, Representative Brown, mentioned that we did pass a teacher pay bill this session. I'm glad that the House came on board after we passed one last session. So the bill has been sent to the governor and he did sign it into law. So the teachers and the teachers assistants will be receiving a pay bill, a pay raise as a result of what we did this session, because that is a top priority. In order to improve the state, we have to strengthen our education system. In order to strengthen that system, we have to make sure that we properly treat our teachers by giving them compensation they need and also support they need to do their job. And the tools they need to be very effective. So that's something we're focusing on. In terms of budget I'm working on this weekend, I will be working on our retirement system budget. We know that a lot of retirement systems countrywide have been in trouble. Our job is to make sure that we have a very sound retirement system. In the past, members talked about, what the 13 check that retirees are receiving. We are opposing that. We want to make sure that we maintain the system as it is in terms of benefits and make sure that it is very stable so they can pass out the benefits they work so hard for. So this weekend, we'll be filing a bill to fund the retirement system, our personnel, and also make sure that it's very solid going forward. And also another conference report I'm working on is for the Department of Finance and Administration. That department manages all our state buildings throughout the state. So our job is to make sure that we give them the tools they need to properly maintain those buildings. So we're working on that. In addition to that, I do serve the conference report for the governor's mansion. We have to make sure that we fund that. So we're looking at ways to properly fund the governor's mansion if we would. as we go forward. We also talked about IHL. We know that we have 8 state-supported universities, and in theory, they're supposed to be equal, but in terms of funding, it has not been the case in the past. That's why we had to file the Harris case to come up with money to try to even a playing field. So under the Harris case settlement, we gave our historical black universities, Alcorn, Jackson, and Valley, $500 million to be paid out over a 17-year period of time. That funding ends this year, but our job is to make sure that we come up with money to further appropriate to Jackson State, Alcorn, and Valley. We don't want them to fall further behind. We don't want them to take back the money that they received during the Harris funding. So this weekend, we'll be working very hard to make sure that we don't reduce the money going to Alcorn, Valley, and Jackson, but try to enhance that. Our revenue projection committee met earlier this week, and they did update estimate in terms of how much revenue we will have to spend this session. We will have an additional $500 million to spend, so part of the money will be going to Alcorn, Valley, and Jackson to make sure that we do them justice going forward. But like I said, in addition to passing bills, a big part of our job is funding state government, and that's what we're doing this weekend, working on the funding project so we can adopt a budget before we get out of here next week. So we'll be glad to entertain some of the questions as we go on in the course of this forum. But thank you for allowing us to participate. And I must commend our colleagues because there's a better working relationship with the Hines County delegation, working very hard together, we're on the same page for the most part. And like I said, it's good to have that communication with our delegation because when we work together, people will benefit as a corporation we are have together going forward. So I thank my colleagues for that attitude of working together going forward. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Senator Fraser. And again, thank you, Representative O'Brown, for those very informative updates. We do have questions that have come into the chat. And so we will, without further ado, we will jump into the questions. Again, this is a great discussion. This is information that we all need. I'm telling you, I'm about 8 years from retirement. And so when you said the retirement system and that 13th check, a light bulb went off. So we do have some questions coming in, and we want everyone to have an opportunity to get their questions answered in this very intimate forum. Again, thank you all for your time this morning. The first question is with regard to the teacher pay raise bill. Is there going to be an effort to also give raises to classified non-teaching staff? If either one of you will unmute and answer that. That question is in regard to the teacher pay raise bill.
I will start out, and I'm sure Hillman wants to join in after I make this statement. One thing that we made sure in terms of passing the teachers' pay increase was the fact that we would have a pay increase also for assistant teachers. So yes, the assistant teachers are figured into the scenario, and I don't know what the amounts are, but yes, they are going to be compensated in addition to the regular teachers under the legislation that we passed this year.
In terms of funding for teachers and education, we do allocate money on the state level for teachers and their assistants, but we also expect locals to come with money to supplement what we give them. So the local money can be used to fund pay raises for classified personnel. So we want to make sure that no one is left behind. We realize that we have underfunded education quite a bit. We're trying to catch up with that. This is the first step in the direction we're taking in terms of properly funding education going forward. We want to ensure that our teachers are not required to spend money out of their own pocket to buy supplies for their students. And also, we have to also look at the new norm in terms of distance learning education. We want to make sure the teachers have the tools they need, and also the students have the tools they need to be successful in this new norm in terms of education. So we're working very hard to come up with the infrastructure, broadband, so we have access to our internet statewide, so students won't suffer because of lack thereof.
Thank you. While we're on the teacher pay raise and discussing education, there is another question that has come in. That question is, with the teacher pay raise bill, is there an impact on healthcare cost?
Well, I looked at some of the budgets looking at healthcare costs did go up. So in our appropriation bills, we are funding additional healthcare increases on the budgets I'm working on right now, because healthcare costs did go up, and I think that we have to make sure that we also address that in terms of our K-12 education, also higher education too, pick up the cost of increased healthcare.
Okay, thank you. Continuing along with the subject of education, in terms of community colleges, is there a plan to increase community college adjunct pay for adjunct faculty members?
One thing that this community college has been working on is coming up with a mid-level pay increase for our community colleges, average between what higher education receiving and also what K-12 teachers are receiving right now. In terms of the bill we're working on this weekend, we're trying to make sure that we look at all aspects of it, see what we can do for our community college faculties. But we're going to give them some flexibility in terms of how they can spend some of that money going to community colleges. So some of those administrators will have flexibility in terms of addressing some of the adjunct faculties in terms of pay that they're paying them out of the budget passing starting in July. They will have some flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
I can add something to that, and that is that we also increased our funding to the junior colleges in terms of vocational technical education. We decided to put more money into that area, or those areas, particularly with regards to Hines and Northeast Mississippi Junior College. So we are also putting more money into the technical educational side of the junior college's mission.
Okay, thank you both for those answers regarding community college adjunct funding. There's a question concerning the Mississippi Adequate Education Program, MAEP. That question is, will that program be fully funded for the upcoming year?
I think the last time that program was fully funded was when Ronnie Musgrove was governor. That was a priority. But in terms of the legislature, we're trying to make sure that people understand that K-12 education is a top priority. Fully funding MAP is a goal. I can't say that it's going to be accomplished this year, but that is a goal we're working toward, making sure that we use all of the resources to address that need. But like I said, there won't be a reduction in funding going to K-12 education, MAEP, so we want to make sure that we make that clear. There won't be a reduction in funding going to K-12 education in terms of what we gave them last year. But one of the problems we're facing, let me point this out, is that there was a reduction in enrollment in K-12 education. And our formula for funding K-12 education is based on student enrollment. If there's a decrease in enrollment in any year, funding for that school will go down. What we're trying to do is make sure that we use last year base enrollment as opposed as the point of funding education. So we won't be in a position of decreasing funding to these school districts going forward. A lot of these schools lost students because some of the parents decided to educate the kids at home because of COVID. Some transferred the kids to some private schools or Catholic schools, but some of those kids might come back now that COVID is being addressed by our new administration. But like I said, we want to make sure that we don't reduce funding because of the decreasing population we're seeing in K-12 education this year. I want to make sure that we fund them so we can be in a position to attract those students back next year.
Thank you so much, Senator Fraser. There is a question here relating to retired teachers. That question is, will retired teachers that go back in the classroom on the 93-day program get a raise as well? Also, the second part of that question is, will the retirement salary increase?
This is Bo Brown again. I do not recall us dealing with that this year. Not personally, and certainly, you know, the retirement benefits are figured based on the quarters and based on the salary average that you have maintained during your years of working. So I don't recall us working on anything related to that special, any kind of special appropriations for that. Hillman may know.
There is a shortage of teachers in our state, and we're looking at ways to give retired teachers incentive to come back to teach. But in terms of increasing the pay, we have not gotten to that point. We're addressing how much we want to compensate them if they come back. But we're trying to come up with a package to attract them to come back to help out, since there's such a severe shortage of our teachers in our system. But we're going to have to address pay for those retired teachers at some point. But in terms of their pay, they're going to same pay they received last year, retired teachers.
Okay, thank you all for that. Representative Brown, earlier you shared plans concerning prison reform. There's a question that has come into the chat concerning prison overcrowdedness. So I want to tackle that question, if I may. What are the legislative plans to reduce prison overcrowdedness and long-term sentencing for young men? Again, the question is, what is the plan, legislative plans to reduce prison overcrowdedness and long-term sentencing for young men?
Well, we certainly have adopted, as I said, some policies this year that were aimed at reducing these long sentences because we realized that by having these long sentences, it's costing the department much more money. It's busting the budget, so to speak, because of the amount of cost it is to house a prisoner. So yes, the legislature did pass something that reduced the sentencing to a certain degree. Don't have the exact percentage of reduction, but that is something for that. And certainly we have been fighting and we are pushing to try to reduce these long sentencing for our young folk. I personally feel like there has been a planned approach to giving our young folk long sentences by some judges in the state of Mississippi. And I certainly hope that we will deal with that. But generally, we didn't deal with specifically young folk having long sentences. But, you know, we got to deal with that at the ballot box, I think. In other words, these circuit judges primarily are the ones that's giving these young folk these long sentences. You recall here in Jackson, we had one that was noted for doing that, and the voters decided to get him out of there. And, you know, I recall the incident where this particular circuit judge gave a young man, and I think he was maybe 16, 17 years old, 30 years for something that was a felony, of course, but it was nonviolent offense. I can't think of what it was, but the voters will help reduce the sentencing for our young folk. And another thing, though, that I am proposing, and I pushed this bill, but it didn't get any traction. That is, a lot of our young folk who are committing crimes are dropouts. They don't like reading, writing, and arithmetic, but they may like some vocational technical education. And I'm pushing that we put vocational technical education back into the curriculum. And because everybody just can't do the 3 hours as they used to be called years back. So yeah, we're trying to fight that on 2 or 3 different fronts, but mainly we're trying to give these young folk an alternative to learning and to a trade and to technical education for the ones who just get bored with reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Part of the problem we face in this legislature is that tough on crime mentality. During the Nixon administration and after that, they felt that they should show the folks they were tough on crime. In doing so, the Mississippi legislature passed a law that said if you are convicted, you must serve 85% of your sentence before you can be released. And that applied to a lot of our non-violent offenders. And that caused our costs to go up. And also in terms of getting tough on crime, that created need for additional jail space. So that's why the private prisons came into play. Crime pays in terms of making some of these private prisons rich. So that increased the cost that we had in terms of incarcerating some of our folks in our system in Mississippi. And a lot of that money that was used to improve, to incarcerate those offenders, a lot of that money was taken from education, fifth, and other areas. Last session of the legislature did pass a bill to address some of those concerns, to reduce the 85% rule, to allow a lot of those non-felon offenders to be released, be eligible for parole rather. But our governor did veto that piece of legislation last session, so we didn't get much traction for that. Our legislature has been working with them this session, trying to come up with something that can pass and get a signature going forward. So we are mindful of the fact that the 85% rule is costing us more, and these private prisons are draining us. So we're trying to make sure that we do something to reduce the cost by allowing those non-violent offenders to be eligible for parole and put them in work release programs so they can become more productive citizens in society. One thing we did this session was we did pass a bill to allow our folks to give them driver's license once they're released from prisons, because a lot of them don't have the license. They can't get from where they're incarcerated where the job is. So if we give them the driver's license, it will give them the flexibility to go run and try to find jobs somewhere. That's one burden that they don't have to face once they are released. But like I said, the legislature did address it last session. We're addressing that this session, and the governor stands the bill that we passed this session. We'll be in a position to address some of the prison overcrowdedness we're facing, and also some of the high costs that we're seeing because of non-violent offenders being housed in our correctional system.
Thank you, Senator Fraser. While we're there, a question did come in. I think you kind of touched on it. This question is in relation to Senate Bill 2795 that was vetoed last year by the governor. The question is, were there plans to address violent crimes when granting parole, such as the bill that was vetoed last year? So I think you did just kind of shed light on what you all are doing to revisit that. Am I correct?
That's correct. We are revisiting that.
Okay.
Give him another chance to make good of the bill we passed.
Okay, thank you, thank you. We want to shift gears now, and we want to talk about the tax increase. I will toss it over to Sora Russell because there are questions as it relates to the 1% tax increase. And as you all know, Jackson, Mississippi is where our chapter is housed. All of our service area, many of our members. So this is affecting all of us in some way, whether we live in the city of Jackson or work in the city of Jackson. So we want to get to that topic and take some questions that are in the chat concerning the tax increase.
Thank you, Sora Reed. I'm actually going to pass it to Sora Sampson, so she can take this one, starting with the first one in the Q&A chat. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Sora Russell. The first question that we have is, can you explain the last 1% sales tax increase usage and compare it to the new one for infrastructure in Jackson?
Okay, the last 1% sales tax increase that we passed was passed to address infrastructure in the city of Jackson. The voters did have a chance to vote whether or not they wanted to impose that 1 cent sales tax on them, and so the voters did approve it in a referendum. So that money is being used to repair a lot of our streets in the city of Jackson as we go forward. So that is in place right now. Our current administration did propose another penny tax, 1 cent increase, to address some of the problems that came out during this last ice storm of the water crisis, because they do have major problems we're going to have to address. The infrastructure is crumbling. The water system is in need of replacing and repair, so they need revenue to fix that. So they came up with one additional 1 cent sales tax to address that. That only produces about $14 million a year based on our best numbers. But it's been the position of the Senate so far is to look at other alternatives as opposed to putting additional burden on the citizens in Jackson, look at ways to give them relief without requiring them to pay an additional sales tax on that. So we're looking at federal funds and also ways that we can bind it on the state level to address some of those infrastructure problems in the city of Jackson. But like I said, in terms of the bill that was advanced this session for the 1 cent sales tax for the city of Jackson, additional 1 cent sales tax for the city of Jackson, it was not passed by the legislature, the House or the Senate, so that's dead this session. But one thing the Senate is doing during the interim is looking at our overall tax structure. As you know, the governor did propose reducing our income taxes. Our speaker and our legislators on the House side did pass a bill that would have reduced income taxes altogether, and also reduce some of the taxes on groceries but also increasing the general sales tax, I think, up to 9%. The Senate did not go along with that proposal. We're going to study everything carefully this summer. That was a very thick bill that the House sent over, but it requires additional input from the public in terms of how it's going to impact the public. We'll make sure that we do the right things in terms of a tax bill we considered. They talk about reducing income tax, but it's going to increase the sales tax on general items that our constituents buy. They might wind up being worse off had not we done anything with the taxes. So that's what we're going to study carefully this summer and come up with a recommendation once we reconvene in January on taxes.
Okay, I'd like to please. You know, before we can do a tax increase, we have to also have a moratorium, a referendum voted on by the governing body, which would be the municipality in this case. But that is one of the on the wish list for the city of Jackson, and that is to do another 1 cent sales tax increase to help with the water problems that we have here in Jackson. So that's still on the list. But as Hillman just said, we probably won't deal with increasing the taxes. And of course, we didn't also go for the income tax increase that was proposed by certain segments of this body, because while it would have increased the sales tax 2%, I believe, 2 cent rather, we felt that would be a bigger strain on low income earners if we would pass that. So I don't believe that's going to be viable this year. Thank God. But the point about that, the 1% could happen because I think the city wants it to happen, and if we grant it, it still would have to be voted on by the citizens of Jackson, and I believe up to about 60 or 70% of the citizens must agree on the increase. So that may still be in the works.
Thank you so much, Representative Brown. This question goes for you directly regarding the 1% tax bill while we're going down that road. I know you answered most of this question, but if the bill passes, who will have control and how soon will residents see changes? And the second part is, does this go for the entire state or just the city of Jackson specifically?
Well, the 1 cent that we're speaking about is just for the city of Jackson. It would be strictly for the city of Jackson. There are other cities now that come to the legislature to ask for.
Your sound went out on my end.
Yeah,
I think you're reading. Okay.
and we grant them generally that request. But even if we give the city an opportunity to do it, it would still mean a referendum vote by right at 65, maybe 70% of the people must agree to the 1 cent tax increase. So it's a two-step process primarily, and the citizens must approve it. Now, who's going to be in charge? It would have to be the city of Jackson. Their financial administration would have to pretty much run that, wouldn't have any oversight from us, from the state legislature at all. It's strictly local city responsibility to make sure that the money is spent appropriately.
Okay.
Well, the last 1 cent sales tax that was passed for the city of Jackson had a commission And that commission
Yeah.
has the power to work with the city in terms of identifying projects to spending money on. If another 1 cent sales tax is addressed by this legislature, I'm quite sure the commission would be discussed also in terms of makeup and whether or not the city will have a majority of appointees on that commission in terms of spending that money. But like I said, that did not go anywhere this session and will be studied further. And like I said, like my colleague pointed out, the last time we had the 1 cent sales tax for the city of Jackson, the voters had a chance to vote on that in a referendum. But in addition to 1 cent sales tax, a lot of our cities have the hotel, motel, and restaurant taxes to support our convention center and convention activities throughout their cities. So we do have a large amount of local taxes being put on citizens to address different issues. But if we address the 1 cent sales tax for the water system this session, next session, the commission will be studied in terms of who's going to be governing it, those dollars, and how the money will be spent.
Well, the only thing about that is, Senator, is that, you know, the people seem to have balked, shall we say, seem to have had some resistance to the committee. I know we've heard a lot of negativity coming from that committee. And, you know, a lot of these 1 cent increases we are granting here in the legislature, it does not come with a committee, so to speak, to oversee the money. And I'm not so sure that it's a criteria to have such a committee, because I think it should be left up to the cities personally. But I'm saying, I know one thing, we had a lot of criticism about that committee here in Jackson in terms of allocating the money on a timely basis and all that. So we'll just have to see, as Senator Fraser said about that.
Right, that commission was put in that bill to get additional votes from some of those rural colleagues who did not want to pay that additional tax and come to the city of Jackson. So without that commission at that time in history, the bill would not have passed. But we have a different legislature right now, and the thinking might be somewhat different in terms of this legislature, the House and the Senate. But like I said, don't be surprised if that commission will be discussed. But in terms of our locals, I think that we can be responsible enough to spend that money on the local level without commission being added for the city of Jackson.
Right.
Thank you so much for those updates and answering those questions for us on that 1% tax. I know people are concerned about that, especially when you're raising something. I'm going to toss it over to Sora Sampson, and she's going to take the next question from our Q&A box.
Next question that we have is, will the state provide direct state bond funding to the city of Jackson to improve the water system? Due to the fact that it's not fair that citizens have to bear the tax burden when state offices in Jackson are not billed for water.
Bonding is being discussed. We're looking at different options right now. Nothing's off the table. We're trying to make sure that we come up with something that's going to benefit the city of Jackson. I think it's safe to say that our colleagues want to help the city of Jackson, but we're going to have to look at the plan they propose and also look at the resources available both on the state and federal levels to address the water problems. We have plumbing infrastructure problems all over the country. And I think that part of the money that was in this last act that Congress passed, part of the money can be used to address infrastructure problems. So we're going to look at ways to maximize the amount of money we're getting from the federal government to address some of the water problems we have in the city of Jackson. But bonding is one option we're looking at.
And let me add to that, Senator and ladies, is the fact that Jackson did give us a wish list, shall we say, of the amount of money it would require to get the water and sewer system up to par, not to fix, of course, the whole problem, but they gave us a figure of about $47 million, and with the state's portion, about $15 million. So they've put something on the table for us to consider. But as the senator just said, so far we've not complied or dealt with that. But I certainly favor myself personally the state helping the city out we met with the Speaker of the House along with some City of Jackson officials back here a few weeks ago. And one of the things that came out of the meeting was the fact that I reminded the Speaker and the state legislature representatives that were in there that Jackson is, of course, the heartbeat of Mississippi. If you kill the heart, you destroyed the body, which is the city of Jackson. So I'm optimistic that we will get some kind of assistance from the state to help Jackson with its water and sewer problem. Although a lot of money also is being committed from the federal government, as you've heard lately, Senator Hyde Smith is talking about some kind of grant or allocation to Jackson, but we don't know how far that's going to go. And I believe also in the stimulus package, there will be some additional money that can also go toward Jackson's water woes. So as they say, looks like help is on the way in regards to that.
Right. I had a chance to have a meeting with the congressman last Saturday, as a matter of fact, and the Hyde bill doesn't have much traction in Congress right now. But our challenge is to make sure that we fully understand the bill that Congress passed, because some of the money can be used to address some of the problems in the city of Jackson. But if you want to ask for it, apply for the money, you won't get it. So we're working very closely with our staff to identify funds that can be used for the city of Jackson. I just hope that they're doing the same thing on the local level to make sure they identify funds that can be used to address the water problems in the city of Jackson. Money is there for certain projects, but if you don't apply for those funds, don't know about them, you won't get them. You don't act, you don't get. So we're working very hard to make sure that we understand what we are eligible for, so we can allocate that money to Jackson, Byron, Cherry, Utica, Crystal Springs, and other areas.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Also want to note that there has been some love being shown to you all and your work and your service, specifically some love regarding you all fighting for our HBCUs so they will be able to compete on all levels with everybody. Okay, gonna shift gears a little bit. Have a question about retirement on the floor. This constituent wants to know, how does the 13th check affect a person's retirement?
How does it affect the retirement? That's a cost of living adjustment to give every year. Some folks elect to receive that monthly, but some elect to receive a 13 check, the cost of living adjustment. And every year it increases. So some of them look at that as a bonus 13 check as opposed to the 12-month increase they've been getting from the state of Mississippi. That we plan to continue that because that is a benefit that a lot of them stay employed with the state to get once they retire. But like I said, there have been attempts in the past to get rid of that 13 check. But like I said, we have resisted that because that is something that we want to make sure that our retirees are entitled to. But like I said, you work for that, you entitled to that, we want to make sure that we honor our commitment to you in terms of giving you that 13 check. But it's basically a cost of living raise you get every year from the state government.
Thank you for that. The next question that we have is regarding the Medicaid. So Mississippi has a long history of resistance to Medicaid expansion. Many reasons have been given, one of which is cost to the state. Last year, the Mississippi Hospital Association had a proposal to get the cost paid for through other sources rather than the state. Did that help at all to reduce the resistance?
I'll answer first, Kim. The state's cost for Medicaid is only about 5% of the total allocation. And the 5% is kind of like a drop in the bucket, I would think, in terms of the benefit that the expanded Medicaid would have for the state of Mississippi. You know, you would have better rural hospitals. You would have a healthier society here in Mississippi. And one of the things, the benefit for newborns would be increased. Right now, there's a limited benefit for young pregnant mothers in terms of getting benefits for newborn babies because of lack of Medicaid expansion. So we only, like I say, come up with about 5% of that total cost. And I just can't see to save my life why we've not been able to get Medicaid funded fully here in the state of Mississippi. But I think the environment is changing, and I understand Hillman can add some light to this. At one time, the lieutenant governor was kind of like leaning toward perhaps considering expanding Medicaid. And of course, I think that's a good sign and a good step.
Yes, Medicaid expansion has been a very hot topic in this state, and it has been more political issue as opposed to a public health battle in the legislature in terms of our governor. In terms of Medicaid expansion, if we expand Medicaid in this state, there's a 9-to-1 match. For every $9 the state, the federal government puts in, we put in $1. But under this new bill that just passed, the federal government will cover that $1 we put in, so it'll be basically a free expansion for the state of Mississippi. So in terms of the political battle, a lot of our colleagues in the other party resisted expanding Medicaid because it was ID advanced by Obama and his administration. So they didn't want to be very cooperative in terms of giving Obama a very successful program to benefit all the folks in the state of Mississippi around the nation. Neighboring state of Louisiana expanded Medicaid, and they're much better off than we are today. Our other state of Arkansas expanded Medicaid, but they didn't call it Obamacare, they called it something else. So that's what some of the states are doing. They're renaming it and expanding at the same time. The state of Missouri, legislators resisted expanding Medicaid, but the people put it on the ballot and expanded in the state of Missouri because they realized that in addition to addressing the health needs of the state, you're also going to have an economic aspect of it because of employment job opportunities it will bring in. But in terms of Mississippi, during the campaign, last generation campaign, our lieutenant governor, Deputy Hoffman, did talk about Medicaid expansion. He was open to the idea. Our hospital association has come up with a plan that would allow us to expand Medicaid, and they would pay part of that match. But if we hear more of our hospital administrators and hospital calling for that, because a lot of them are closing, it's going to give legislators who opposed it in the past more cover to vote on expanding Medicaid. But in terms of Medicaid expansion, that is the prerogative of the governor right now. He has the power to expand it, accept those funds or not. But like I said, there's a lot of momentum in terms of addressing it to make sure that we expand it, to accept the money that's coming in to address the real healthcare needs of our people and keep a lot of our hospitals from closing around the state of Mississippi.
Thank you, Senator Fraser and Representative Brown. Moving on to the next question. One from the floor. The question reads, realizing the bill for the approval of medical marijuana has passed, where are we now as far as medical providers actually recommending it to patients?
Okay, in terms of medical marijuana, as you know, there was a big battle this session to come up with an alternate medical marijuana bill in case this was not successful. The mayor of Madison did sue this initiative process, and the Supreme Court is going to rule whether or not our medical marijuana bill is legitimate at this time. But if it is held to be legitimate, the Department of Health will come up with guidelines in terms of who can dispense it, where those dispensaries will be, and different regulations that will control medical marijuana in the state of Mississippi. But like I said, the governance, the regulation will be sent down by the State Department of Health, and they're working very hard right now coming up with regulations. But like I said, when we voted for medical, when that was on the ballot, you also had a competing measure on the ballot, 65A, that was proposed by the legislature. But the legislature plan was defeated, was not adopted, and the regular 65 was adopted, and this one that is going forward. But if it goes forward without the Supreme Court striking it down, it will be administered, regulated rather by the State Department of Health. They will come with a regulation in terms of whether the dispensaries will be and the cost and all those different things that will be required to make the program run smoothly.
Okay, Bo Brown here. I think that we need to do what the people's will was in terms of the Medicare, in terms of marijuana. We voted a bill that was accepted by a vast majority of the citizens of Mississippi. And I think we should move forward with the bill as it was voted on. Right now, it seems to me that there's a lot of politics being played to make sure that the right movers and shakers are in place in terms of making money off of this marijuana bill, because it's going to bring millions, perhaps if not billions of dollars into the state. And I think some of the hold up now is the fact that people want to get in position. People in high places wants to get in position to make money off of this initiative. And of course, our thing is, based on the original passage of the marijuana bill, is we want everybody to get involved who qualify to get involved. That is raising it, distributing it, storing it, dispensing of it. And I think that's the fight, because some folk want to control it and keep other folk out of it. So that's the fight that we're facing. Besides, of course, the lawsuit, which I think is going to be thrown out because she's basing that on an old constitutional ruling that's been far outdated. So I'm for it, and I hope that the citizens would demand that we move forward based on what was voted upon.
Thank you. Definitely, I agree with you, Representative Brown and Senator Fraser. I just want to double back. I saw a question in the chat. It reads, will Social Security recipients receive a cost of living increase this year?
That will be determined by the federal on the federal level and on the state level.
Thank you, thank you. We're just moving right along to the next question. Someone asks, business continues to exit Jackson and end up in Madison and Rankin counties. So is there anything in the works to slow down this exodus?
Well, you want first stab at that, Bo? I guess he's no longer with us. In terms of the exit, that is troubling to see so many businesses leaving the city of Jackson. You have to understand why a lot of them leaving. The crime problem is a major problem, deterrent to businesses staying here. If we have a different murder every other day in the city of Jackson, a business has been broken into, it's going to add added cost to operating business in the city of Jackson. So folks are looking at that. And also this aging infrastructure is also handicap a lot of our businesses. Look at the restaurants. A lot of them can operate properly during the water crisis in the state. So as opposed to looking at those challenges, dealing them on a regular basis, some businesses are electing to move out of the city of Jackson. So they won't have to deal with the water crisis problem or the crime problem in the city of Jackson. And also you look at the tax rates. If you keep increasing taxes on the local level, a lot of the businesses will be looking at areas where the crime rate won't be as high or the tax rate won't be as high. So I think that working with our local leaders in the city of Jackson, we can come up with some plan to address the crime problem and also to stabilize the revenue stream to fix the infrastructure and water problem in the city of Jackson. But once you address those issues, some of the businesses will decide to relocate back into the city of Jackson. But this crime problem is no joke. It's not helping us passing on the local level either, on the state level for the city of Jackson.
Thank you so much, Senator Hillman. Representative Brown, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but my video is not showing now. I don't know if you can see me or not, but
we can hear you. We can hear you just fine.
Okay, what was the question again? I was going to address it.
Is there anything in the works to slow down the exodus of the businesses leaving Jackson and ended up in Madison or Rankin County?
Yes, you know, there was an old saying that states that if you build a better mousetrap, people will beat a path to it. And that's an old economic philosophy statement. And the point is, we have to, first of all, we need to clean up the crime element in Jackson. We all know that that's part of the deterrent of business coming here. We need to clean up the crime problem. We need to have a no tolerance crime policy here in the city of Jackson. Certainly we need more policemen. My point is, we have to clean up some things in the city before we can attract additional business. For an example, and I know you ladies can agree with this, and I would hope that we all could pitch in some kind of way and help with this. Jackson is a real dirty city. And I know as you drive around through these communities and through these areas, you can see trash, debris, burned down houses, half torn down houses on nearly every street, certainly in every neighborhood, every community. So blight and crime needs to be addressed initially before we can think about bringing businesses to this city. And then here's another thing. I was an advocate of this when I was on the city council. Why do we follow these businesses that leave Jackson to Madison and Rankin County? You know, I was a big stickler about the Cadillac place leaving Jackson and moving to Madison County. When we got thousands of folk in Jackson, Black folk, that drive Cadillacs, and we follow them right on up there to Richland. So, you know, there are a lot of ways of tackling these businesses leaving town. But I think the first two things is we need to make sure, and then of course we got to make sure we got proper leadership. And no defense or no offense against anybody in particular, but we need top leadership. Clean up the blight, get more police presence and more accountability, and take a no tolerance attitude toward policing. If you throw a paper wrapper, a gum wrapper out of your car and the police see it, right now you pass on by. Stop the person, give them a ticket for loitering, illiterate. Anyway, I don't know what the answer is, but I think if we would address it from those perspectives I just mentioned, we can see some improvement in that area.
Thank you, gentlemen. We have 2 more questions left on the floor. Once again, just want to voice over. We want to thank our constituents and participants for these really juicy questions. Next on the floor, someone wants to know, where do I find the information for the teacher merit pay criteria?
State Department of Education. State Department of Education. You talking about the bill we passed or the chair they using in the State Department of Education?
The question actually does not specify, so if you could give information for both of those questions, I think that would be helpful.
Right. They could call my office 601-359-2886. That's 601-359-2886. And I can give them a copy of the bill we passed on teacher pay. The State Department of Education will be in charge of dispersing the proceeds from various districts for the teacher pay bill that we did pass this session, signed into law by the governor.
Thank you. And then I will pass it to Sarah Gardner for our final question.
All right, we've had such an amazing time thus far. Okay, we've had such an amazing time thus far. Like Sarah Russell said, we want to thank everyone for these questions. As we come to our last question, it reads, has any legislation passed in reference to loan repayment for teachers? And I'm a teacher, so this is a question that I need to hear. Representative Brown, I think Senator Fraser stepped away. So if you can take that question for us. Oh, well, okay. Um, Senator Fraser, can you, did you hear the question to elaborate for us? I can repeat it. Okay, I think you're on mute, but I think you said no.
Okay, it's better. I
Yes.
muted. Okay, I didn't hit the question.
Okay, has any legislation passed in reference to loan repayments for teachers?
Some has been discussed, but nothing has passed this session in terms of loan repayment. There were different proposals advanced during the session in terms of repaying loans if you relocate in high stress areas. So that was discussed this session in terms of incentive to encourage teachers to relocate in low performing districts. And if they stay there for 5 years, the loan would be forgiven because of the service in those areas. But that is still being studied, the best way to address it. That high student debt is killing so many folks.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to address it.
Yes, sir. I definitely agree. I'm a
Uh,
teacher myself. Oh, okay. Go ahead.
I'm still here, and
Okay.
I'm gonna be with him on that. I don't recall anything that we've done to address loan repayments. You talking about student loan repayments? I assume. No, I mean, is that what I'm
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
hearing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, one good thing about that is, and I hope that you're aware of it, we do have a federal initiative that President Biden is trying to push that will eliminate a large percentage of student loans. And certainly I would hope that the feds would take the first step. And I assume if they would take a step, the legislature would probably be right behind them. So I think the environment for reducing that strain on so many of our teachers and professionals is nearing. So let's just hope that the feds will make the first move on that.
Yes, I agree. Thank you so much. We do have another question that was sent in the chat room that we will answer before we close. It says, how will we be able to follow up on all of these wonderful updates and bills that we learned about this session? How will we be able to follow up and know the outcome of these bills?
I'll go first, Hillman, and
Go
then you
ahead.
can wrap it up. One of the things that I found out this year that there were several people calling me about the various bills that I had introduced, particularly the one concerning the mental health assistance for the released inmates, and but they were following us on the computer. In other words, you get your app with city government, state government, and then you can follow all the proceedings of the legislature in full view. And of course, it requires, like I say, an app that says state government. I don't know the exact technicalities in setting that up, but if you would get that app, and then you can follow the deliberations, the discussions, the whole thing, and it's right there on your computer every day. And of course, you can call us anytime, and we'll be glad to bring you updates individually. But that's part of our responsibility, is to respond to the questions and the needs of our constituency.
Right. All of our proceedings are online. If you go to the Mississippi web page, just type in Mississippi Legislature, that will direct you to the Mississippi web page. And once you get to that web page, you have access to all the bills that were filed, how the members voted on those bills, all the members' contact information, and all of that. So you can do it that way. And also, legislators enjoy meeting with you personally to your civic clubs, social clubs, your churches, organization, to give an update. So each one of you will be represented by one House member and one Senate member. Call your legislators and demand that they come to your meeting to explain to them what's being considered and how they voted on different things. So that is accessible to everybody. And all of our meetings are open to the public. Right now, because of Zoom, we have to Zoom a lot of our committee meetings to the public, but you have access to that also. Our committee schedule is appointed, is announced daily, and our timetable for processing that legislation is also posted. So go to our webpage, type in Mississippi Legislature, that will take you direct to our webpage, or call your legislator direct, and then we'll give you an update. And be glad to come to you to discuss anything that of interest to you. Feel free to call me anytime. I feel blessed to be a part of. I'm a Delta husband, so I love Delta, so I will answer it anytime when Delta calls.
I'm a Delta husband too, Sherman. You know that.
That's right.
My daughters are Delta daughters too. So I'm DST all the way around, and a brother.
Yeah.
Love to hear. That is exactly what I love to hear.
Yes.
My daughter was a Delta, and a Delta teacher too. So I love me some Deltas.
So what I'm hearing you say is that everyone on the panel believes Delta is wonderful. Great, I agree.
Yes.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. We truly cannot thank you enough. Actually going to pass it to Sora Sampson to wrap us up. Sora Garner is going to thank our other mentees who helped put this together, and then Sora Reed is going to thank our lovely officers. Sora Sampson.
Sora Russell, I am so glad this event was such an amazing experience. I'm not a political person. I'm a senior, so I'm just learning everything, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to hear so many new things and about bills being passed, and I'm very much more informed about what's going on in Jackson, especially now that I'm about to be actually an adult. So I'm just glad to hear about all of this. But again, we have reached the conclusion of today's coffee and conversations. To Senator Fraser and Representative William Bo Brown, I thank you so much for your time and unwavering service, not only to the city of Jackson, but for spending some time with us this morning, because you didn't have to do it, but we appreciate you anyway. So thank you. I'm passing it on to Sora Garner.
Thank you.
All right. Again, we just want to say thank you to you two gentlemen for stopping by and fellowshipping with us this morning. I did want to take the time to thank all of the lead mentees who helped put this program on. Sora Russell, shout out to you. Sora Reed, shout out to you as well. You guys were awesome. Myself and Sora Sampson was like, oh, we're not political people. So, and Sora Reed and Sora Russell, you guys were so, I'm an alumni member, and they were even encouraging to me when they were going through this. So we like to thank everyone, including the mentors who helped us along the way and who guided us to put this amazing program on. It was awesome. Thank you guys so very much. And Sora Reed, if you would take the show now.
Thanks again for everyone's participation. The engagement was phenomenal. Let's give a virtual round of applause to our beautiful Sora Sampson and Sora Garner, our beautiful co-hosts this morning. You all did a phenomenal job leading the discussion. We want to take this time to recognize, I know that we have some visiting Soras who are joining in on this town hall this morning. I did see someone in the chat from Laurel, Mississippi, by way of Laurel Alumni Chapter. We certainly thank you. I saw that there's a Sora T-Ball here, and I think that that's our Mississippi State facilitator. So we want to welcome you and definitely thank you for spending your morning with us on behalf of the Jackson, Mississippi Alumni Chapter Lead Committee. Any JMAC chapter officers that are on here, again, as well as any state officers here, anybody from other chapters that are representing this morning, this was something that we all can take something away from. So we, have enjoyed this segment, very informative information. Thank you all participants for your questions. Senator Fraser and Representative Brown, we certainly thank you for sharing with us this morning. And hats off to you for the work that you do. We won't hold you any longer because both of you are currently at the Capitol waiting to get back to work. So thank you for the service that you are rendering on behalf of us, the Soras of Jackson, Mississippi Alumni Chapter, and from all across the state, from Soras, we echo our sentiments, and we cannot thank you enough for the work that you are doing and how well you represent. Thanks everyone again for joining us. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time. And you all go forth, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.